Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now today I want to talk about the rapid globalization and digitalization brought by the breakthrough technologies and how they have actually given a rise to these new types of disruptive leaders that are spreading across global hubs in the traditional and transformative functional areas across all sectors. So HI Executive Consulting, or HIEC as they're more commonly known, was established over a decade ago to disrupt the traditional approach to executive search with a premium focus on digital and technology across all sectors that they serve. And they're devoted to nurturing clients and organisations with this new wave of leaders through a forward-looking vision, globally joined-up team and bespoke consulting approach for each client. Clients that need agile, transformative leaders to run their business. But enough from me. Come and join me on a trip to New York City so we can speak with Tim Robson, Global Managing Partner at HI Executive Consulting. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Tim. Can you tell the listeners a little more about who you are and what you do?
Hi, yeah, thank you, Neil, and great to be invited on. So I'm an executive search consultant and have been for the last 17 years, 10 of which have been with HI Executive Consulting. I'm one of the founding managing partners. For those of your listeners who don't know us, we're an executive search firm that handle both board positions and executive leadership positions exclusively in the ecosystem of technology and digital. So that's either into the technology sector or it's in helping clients who are in traditional industry sectors who are currently pivoting, transforming, responding to disruption created by digital in the things that they do. We're a global firm. We have 13 offices around the world, and I'm based from New York and have a lead position in the firm in handling some of the search work I've just described.
HIEC is the leading agile, globally connected executive search firm, employing a unique borderless delivery model to actually drive connections and opportunities for C-level executives. But just to get everyone on the same page, can you tell listeners a little bit more about the kind of problems that you're solving for your customers? And also, what makes you guys different from all those other solutions out there?
Yeah, sure. I think that's a good question. And frankly, I think in executive search right now, in the digital space, arguably it's the most exciting time to be involved. We're helping clients with a range of different challenges, I guess, because we have this environment where you have traditional organizations that need to respond very urgently to change created by both digital challenges and opportunities. And so, let me give an example. We might be the guys, if you can imagine, that would be helping a bricks and mortar retailer, and they have some challenges, I guess, in their markets, pivot into a real e-commerce player. Or we might be the guys who are helping a traditional financial services institution pivot into a fintech organization. What that requires, of course, in order to help with that significant change is, I guess, change agents, if you will. They will be transformational leaders who are digitally savvy, whether that means they're operational leaders or they're board advisors, irrespective, they'll bring a degree of transformational change and a degree of knowledge, deep knowledge, in fact, of the technology and digital segments. So we end up, I suppose, Neil, helping both large-scale corporate traditional clients in some of their own significant business model changes through the appointment of very senior leaders, or indeed we might be helping, let's call them digital native, younger growth businesses that are looking to scale their businesses, professionalize, internationalize, and so on.
And you initially set out to disrupt the traditional approach to executive search with a premium focus on digital and technology across all sectors that you serve. But can you help listeners visualize the kind of difference that you're making by telling me maybe just a little bit more about the old way of doing things and then comparing that and highlighting just how much you've changed that landscape? And most importantly, you're changing it for the better.
Yeah, thanks, Neil. I think the thing that most people that know the executive search industry would accept is that it's, at least over the last 20 or 30 years, it's largely been unchanged. The traditional ways of handling a search continue to this day, and we think it's ripe, frankly, for disruption. So how would it work previously? Arguably, it was a little bit like something of an old boys network. What you would find is there'd be a senior search partner, a bit like me, who would have their little black book of contacts, who they probably knew of old, and they were familiar with each other over a number of years. And without overkilling this, they would be then those individuals would feature and arguably refeature on shortlists again and again and again over a period of time in the same space. What we mean by that, I guess, is very simply, it was a networking game, and it relied on the network of one individual, probably with a pretty narrow local focus in their perspective. And so did that give the clients the best access to world-class talent? I would say that's questionable in one hand. And I think secondly, it also relied a lot on simply the instincts, sometimes which of course would be excellent, but the instincts and the gut feel of that individual search consultant. I'm not sure that you could necessarily argue the search industry would also be putting some science underneath their gut instinct when weighing up potential shortlist candidates. So I think that's probably the contextual landscape to the old way. And then we've tried to bring a very different way of working to better address and be fit for purpose for what's required in this globalized digital lack of siloed and intersectional environment. We're a little different, I think, in how we set ourselves out, and therefore how it best is tailored to the client demand. So first of all, we have a laser focus on all things digital, which I think you've heard. A little unusually, we're globally one firm, so we're partner owned and we're completely connected. And so our job is, how do we create the best and most diverse team from our side so that it gives the client the opportunity to work with our best people to find world-class digital leadership talent wherever that lies globally. We purposely have a business model whereby we have relatively few clients, and we get very close with those relatively few clients. We are, I guess, a strategic partner to those clients. And I think that's really important in executive search because, of course, arguably our biggest challenge is not just finding the right skill sets in the leaders we appoint, but also making sure we're matching, if you will, the cultural, behavioral characteristics of the individual with the organization, so that culturally, from a chemistry perspective, it's a good match. Now, we've taken a really strong voice and indeed even codified in our business a global methodology to make sure we're using a diverse team of perspectives from our side in order to ensure we find a diverse slate of potential candidates for our clients, in all cases, on all searches. And I think our clients come to us most because, of course, if you look into our staff based around our 13 offices, you'll find, I guess, to an extent, we are all in different parts of the market. We are content experts in, I guess, what you might call the new. So in the emerging technologies of things like analytics and cybersecurity and artificial intelligence and so on. In order to make sure we best fulfill client need, in this very diverse, very globally connected, very fluid world where you find leadership talent, we've set out our operating model so that we have 2 partners like me on every search. We leverage that diversity of our delivery team across our offices. So we're looking in all parts of the globe, in all parts of the ecosystem to find world-class talent. And I suppose ultimately we're leveraging both, if you like, the art and the science of how you find and assess the right skills and experiences required to be transformational leaders for our clients. At the same time, we're using the art of making sure that we match the chemistry, the behaviors, the characteristics of the individual with the client. So there's no, we mitigate the risk of tissue rejection and ensure, a happy marriage and ultimately an organization, a client organization that's going to go through significant but important change.
And after a decade of international growth in which you specialised in filling board, CEO and senior level positions, I think it's worth highlighting that you went through a bit of a brand refresh earlier this year. So can you talk me through that and the reasons for that brand refresh? And is it helping you go from strength to strength as a result?
Well, we'd like to think so, Neil. I mean, we're 10 years old, and the truth is, the look and feel of our brand was probably in need of an update. It probably reflected, we've had exceptional growth in the 10 years we've been operating, and we've significantly globalized during that period. The brand that we had was probably fit for purpose when we started and representative of who we were then, a bit like we're describing in our clients, probably not actually reflecting where we are now. And so we hope our clients will like it, but I think it's a much better representation of both the global connectivity and footprint of our firm, and I think it's also better reflective of this very sharp focus on all things transformational and all things digital.
And something else, obviously you're based in the US, but I can tell by your accent you're obviously from the UK like I am. And you probably remember a small company called Thomas Cook. And they've been heavily in the news this week. I don't know if it's filtered across to the US, but Thomas Cook essentially failed to adapt to digital. And I find it incredibly interesting to see the correlation between that high growth, purely digital platforms such as Airbnb and comparing that to the fall of Thomas Cook. So how does a business compete and survive if they actually fall behind the curve? Is that something that you're dealing with as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's highly topical, isn't it, Neil? Yeah. I've been reading it with interest. I think one thing would be fair to say. I think a lot of us would agree that arguably helping let's call it a legacy business transform and pivot to a much more digitally connected player is actually difficult, and it's more difficult, I would say, on balance, than building from the ground up a digital native. It actually probably explains why, if you think of some of the global financial services institutions, to an extent, they're building digital banks from the ground up rather than trying to change their legacy businesses. So I think it's difficult. I think you have to say that. And it's fraught with complexity. I don't know whether there's a silver bullet. I think what we see in our clients is that there's a number of factors together which, if you are a legacy business looking to transform, it gives you the most chance of success. So, what are those things there? Of course, it's making sure you've got the right strategy, undoubtedly, but you've got to get the appropriate level of investment available. So the stakeholders, the stockholders and the stakeholders, if it's public, have to be bought in. There needs to be something around speed and urgency. I think business models are being disrupted so quickly these days. Speed is of utmost importance. Clearly, you need catalyzers. You need the right leadership with the right skills to lead that change, and you have to then make sure that those leaders instill the right culture in the organization to change. Now, I through all that, I think we would say, and we would argue that if you had to choose one factor on its own, it's all oddly, because we're talking about technology and digital, it's always about people and it's always about culture. Ultimately, turning a legacy business is a massive cultural change project, and that means it's about people.
At HIEC, you have a bit of a reputation for having that deep understanding for tech and the digital domain, along with over a decade of industry knowledge. And that's helped you establish yourself as experts in executive search for all transformational positions. But with that in mind, can you tell me a little bit more around the role of technology and emerging tech within your own organisation?
I think that's a great question, Neil, and it's something that we repeatedly talk about as a partner group across our firm. I think, in truth, the executive search industry, oddly, has largely been unchanged for the last 20 years. The kind of methodology, process, and approach, I think a lot of clients would say, feels very similar to what it did 20 or 30 years ago. And actually, there are significant opportunities, we believe, to better use technology in order to enhance the search process, the speed in which we operate, and the experience that the clients receive. We're doing two or three things, I think, at the moment, which may be of interest. I mean, there are now, if you think about internally, there's now opportunities using, I guess, parsing technology, so artificial intelligence technology, to better match, if you will, candidate CVs and biographies and profiles with searches that we're handling. And so we're undertaking a couple of internal trials now of potentially parsing technologies that we may use next year. We're already somewhere down the track in building out a interactive client portal, so going beyond what you can see on our website and allowing clients to real time see at any one point in a search, in the life cycle of a search, where the search is up to. In other words, we're looking very seriously at where we can marry this art and this science of kind of everything we do. The first thing that we've visibly done in the market this year, and which some of our clients will know about, is we've signed a strategic partnership with an artificial intelligent assessment tool, a leadership assessment tool called TeamScope. So this is an assessment tool based on real science, but it's sat on an algorithm, and that allows the client and us as the search provider to assess the values, behaviors, and characteristics of potential shortlisted candidates with the existing client leadership team. So all those individuals take part in a online, very cool digital user interface, which is a personality questionnaire of about 15 minutes, so very rapid, and actually gives a visual readout for how candidate A, B, C, D from a shortlist might add to the existing team dynamic of the client organization, how it would affect the team dynamic, how it would affect the culture of that team. In other words, how an individual might ally the best performing team for the client. And so that's the first, arguably, piece of emerging technology that we're using in the market. We signed that strategic partnership earlier this year. It's launched in the market, and we're already using that technology.
And we are reaching that time of the year where people are going to be looking into their crystal balls, and they're going to be news feeds are going to be full of news stories such as tech trends for 2020. So I've got to ask, what's next for HIEC? Is there anything else you can share about the road ahead for you guys and your customers in 2020 and beyond?
Yeah, thank you for asking. Yeah, it's a really exciting time. We feel really bullish about where we're at as a business, and the continued dynamics across all things digital. I think we would say you will see from us over the course of the next couple of years further investment in our business just to expand the global footprint. We're 13 offices now. There's a couple of strategic geographies that we will open over the course of the next couple of years. I think to the prior, as we discussed in the prior question, the the extent to which you see us investing in technology, both internally for efficiency and automation, but also externally to the client to make sure we're leveraging wherever possible technological advancement to better executive search for our clients. I think you'll see us there, and perhaps finally, we're increasingly used, I think, by our clients, whether they're private equity-backed vehicles, whether they're corporates, whether they're earlier stage growth industries. I think we're used by clients to provide deep analysis and insights about market dynamics, about competitive market dynamics. And so I think you'll see further investment from us so that we can provide, as close to possible real-time information, which is value add for our clients, so they can make the right leadership hiring decisions to better their strategy based on what they know is going on in the market.
And before I let you go, if anyone listening wants to find out more information on that kind of work they're doing and how they can work with you, can you just remind them of where they can find you guys online, and equally the best way of reaching out and contacting your team if they've got any questions?
Yeah, of course. You'll find us on www.hiec.com. And you'll find all our office addresses and contact details there. So that's probably the best way. Equally, people could feel free to drop me an email, trobson@hiec.com, and you'll get from anyone in the global team, of course, you'll get a prompt response.
Excellent. Well, I'm conscious we've talked a lot about digital technology and how disruptive emerging technologies can be and the solutions around that. But what really stands out for me about your conversation today is that you said it's ultimately always about people and always about culture. And I think that's a beautiful note to end on. So a big thank you for coming on and joining me today. Thanks again.
Thanks for having me, Neil. Much appreciated.
So a big thank you to Tim for joining me on the podcast today. I think we all take digital for granted in 2019, but HI Executive Consulting was established over a decade ago to disrupt the traditional approach to executive search with that premium focus on digital and technology across all sectors that they served. So looking back to these days when the iPhone very first arrived on the scene, it certainly seemed like they were slightly ahead of their time. And maybe it was that innate deep understanding for tech and digital domain, along with over a decade of industry knowledge, that has gone on to establish them as experts in executive search for all transformational positions. But you don't want to hear me rambling on and getting all excited. I've said enough already for one day, so let me pass the virtual microphone over to you. Record me a virtual voicemail, send it me through email, techblogwriter@outlook.com. You can tweet me at Neil C. Hughes, or simply drop by my website, techblogwriter.co.uk. Each and every person that listens to this podcast, that's what makes this show work. That's what makes me jump out of bed and run to my podcasting chair each day. So let me know your thoughts. Bring a smile to this aging podcaster's face, and I'll bounce back tomorrow with another guest. So a big thank you for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.